Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah, this is noon, and it is Monday, the first day of the working days. How have you guys been? Those on break, how is your break going through? Those at work, sorry, those at home working remotely, how has it been? And those of you caught up in traffic, or those of you driving at the same time listening to our webinar, how has everything been going with you? Hope everything is moving on smoothly. As usual, I'll just give 1 minute to allow you guys to come in before we start the business of the day. I can see from my attendees list down here a couple of names, a couple of familiar names. You guys are welcome once again. Thank you, Elizabeth. We are so excited to also have you on board here. Like I said some seconds ago, that I'll be giving 1 minute to allow you guys to come in. I think I will just take it off from here, even as people keeps joining us for the event. Good afternoon once again, and welcome for those of you that are joining us for the first time. My name is Gabba Esahaya, and I'm a training coordinator with the Temple Small Business Development Center. The Temple Small Business Development Center helps small business start and grow. We offer free one-on-one consulting and a variety of low to no cost webinars. We are part of the nationally accredited network of the Small Business Development Center, which has over 1,000 networks across the United States. We're here this afternoon for a webinar on page SEO and blogging for small businesses. A copy of the PowerPoint and a link to the recording will be sent to all the attendees. Being a webinar, all the attendees have been muted. However, we always encourage you guys to drop your questions on the Q&A or the chat box. Without further ado, please allow me to welcome my wonderful friend, even as he takes over the floor for the presentation. Zack, you are welcome once again.
Thank you, Garba. Thank you. And thank you, everyone who is joining. I'm excited to be here today. As Garba said, we're going to talk today about on-page SEO. So that's the kind of SEO where Google's looking at what actually takes place on our website. And blogging, business blogging, is typically a great way to take advantage of that, and how we can use that for small businesses. So like you guys, I am a small business owner. Root and Branch is a digital marketing, consulting, and training company. It's quite small. 3 other fun facts about me. I'm the digital marketing executive in residence at the University of Pittsburgh. I would tell you that sounds much fancier than it is. It just means primarily that I get to teach this kind of stuff at Pitt: SEO, digital analytics, Google Ads, paid search. I've lived in Pittsburgh since 2006, but I'm actually moving to North Carolina, heading out later this week, actually, as I was talking to Garba about. So yeah, that's what's going on with me this week. And I'm coming to you today from an Airbnb. So we had sold our house in Pittsburgh. So now this is my office / dining room table in my Airbnb here. So that's what's going on with me today. So what are we talking about today related to on-page SEO? We're going to talk about the digital marketing ecosystem and what Google wants. If any of you were here for the last time I did this, this one slide will be, it will seem familiar, but that will orient us. And then we'll talk about the equation for SEO, what it means to say authority plus relevancy equals SEO. We'll talk about how Google works and how we can get our pages to rank and drive traffic. We'll talk about the idea of domain authority and SEO potential. We'll talk about keywords and keyword research, topic clusters and content planning, something called H1s and H2s, how we use those in our content strategy. Alt text, and you can see I put an asterisk there because that's kind of like my hope that we'll be able to get there, but we've got a lot of stuff here to cover today. So we will see. And then if there's time, we'll have questions at the end. And as we go through, we have a semi-hypothetical business. that we'll use to kind of reference as we go through. So we'll use these guys as we talk about our SEO content strategy. And that business is a counseling center specializing in psychotherapy and psychological assessments. So there is a real business. I don't know if that business is represented here today, but there is a real business that does this. And what's only kind of true is we're going to pretend this business has two main service lines. One service is PCIT, parent-child interaction therapy, which is an evidence-based behavior parenting treatment, and also couples therapy. All right, so just a reminder that will come back, and we'll specifically look at how we might go about trying to increase the search visibility for this website in the area of couples therapy. So people who are looking for that kind of help. Right. So the digital marketing ecosystem and Google. So there's so much in digital marketing, as we all know. There's social media, which on its own is just this massive ecosystem, but that's really just one piece of digital marketing. Then there's web development, understanding how to use sites like WordPress and Shopify or Squarespace or Weebly or Wix. There's local SEO, paid search advertising, on-site SEO, analytics and conversion rate optimization. There's marketing automation, all of these different things. It can be totally overwhelming, but what helps me at least is recognizing that Google sits at the middle of almost all of it. So this is the third of a three-part series about how we can leverage Google to help our small businesses. And we talked really about this side of the equation, the search side. We already talked about paid search advertising. We talked about local SEO, and today is on-site SEO. If you wanted, by the way, get a copy of one of those prior webinars, I believe that you can get access to those still. And I also have resources on my YouTube channel. All right, so what does Google want, right? Google's important. It sits at the middle of all of this, but what does Google really want? What are Google's motivations? Right, to think about, what are search engines trying to do? The way that search engines like Google are made, they have these bots. Google's bot actually has a name. It's called Googlebot, that it's constantly looking all across the internet for content that is relevant, it's authoritative and helpful in answering questions that people like you and me ask it. And there's just I think it's around 3 to 4 billion searches a day. So there's just massive quantities of searches that are happening each day. And Google wants good answers. Why, right? Why does Google kind of operate like it's in the customer service business? Well, like a lot of things with business, it gets down to how Google generates revenue. Google made $258 billion top line revenue in 2021. 80% of that came from advertising, $209 billion. And advertising for Google is mostly you and me every once in a while clicking on those paid ads on the Google search engine results page. The more we're using the ecosystem, the more opportunities Google has to monetize us. So what's that mean? Like the implication, I think, for digital marketers or business owners who are trying to leverage Google to increase their visibility online, is that with all things Google, we will get the absolute best results when we align our motivations to Google's motivations. And that just means providing great content and a great user experience. So if there's nothing else that you get out of what we talked about today about SEO, just think like there is no way to really like do SEO well if you're not creating great, helpful content that is answering questions that customers and prospective customers are legitimately asking that you can help them to solve. All right, let's talk about this SEO equation. Now, this is something I would say that helps me think about SEO. If it's not helpful for you, you know, this is not like a technical thing that you need to actually like put into any of your content, but this is how I think about how SEO works. Authority plus relevancy equals SEO. So we got our authority plus relevancy leading to SEO, which we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But SEO, for us to care about it, for it to be worthwhile, SEO needs to lead to visits. So visits to our website, visits to our business, and those visits, some of them at least, need to translate into conversions, new leads, new sales, new clients. All right, so that's like kind of the theory. And we get a little more granular. We can break that quadrant down of authority plus relevancy into local SEO and on-page SEO. So local SEO, again, we talked about that in our last webinar. Check out the recording from 523, or again, there's resources at the Root and Branch YouTube channel. We're not talking about it today. So I hope you didn't think we were going to. If you were, I'm sorry. Today we're talking about on-page SEO, which is, again, what's on your WordPress site or your Squarespace site or your Weebly site or your Wix site. What can Google actually see there? Whereas local SEO is going to be a lot about, your Google business listing. What does your Yelp listing say about you? All of those things that are like local business directories that aren't actually on your website. So with on-page SEO, when we talk about authority, we are really talking about how many other domains or websites are linking to your domain. And in the eyes of Google, how well regarded are those domains that are sending links? That leads to something that's called domain authority. And then this relevancy bucket, that's where we're talking about how useful, how comprehensive, how well written is the content in answering questions. And how can we increase that relevancy by doing things like locating our content within a group of related pages, something called a topic cluster. So we'll talk about that today. And then within each of our pieces of content, is it optimized for SEO? Are we using optimization best practices? So that's where we'll talk about things like H1s and H2s today. With domain authority, this is I would say the simpler concept of the two. It's all based on the idea that links have value. When your website gets a link from another website, Google takes some of what it believes about the website sending the link and basically transfers that to your website. So Google's like, okay, you've got this website here. And if all these other websites trust it enough to link into it, then I'm going to be more likely to trust it. And that's based on the idea that links have value, which some people call link equity. So one thing, as we'll talk about today, that you can always do to help your business, if there's a sponsorship you do in the community, if there's a business that you partner with, if there are people that you know in the community that are willing to send links to your website's business, those things are going to help over time, help your website increase in its ranking potential in the eyes of Google. And then we'll spend a lot of time today talking about this stuff here in the red box. All right, if you want more about SEO, there's going to be some links in the appendix. And this would be one, some eight trends that I think are relevant for SEO in 2022. If you want kind of more of like the backstory on SEO. And if you're really interested about Google My Business, the Google Business Profile, local SEO, there's going to be a link at the back of the appendix as well. Okay, so how does Google work? We know what Google wants, but how does Google do it? We talked about this thing called Googlebot, which some people call search crawlers or search spiders. So we have this Googlebot, and it goes out to the internet, right? All of the pages on the internet, and it just ingests all of this information. And as it does that, it adds it to what is called the Google Index. And the index is like Google's library, the library of available answers to questions that you and I are asking Google billions of times a day. And based on what Google has in its index and what Google thinks about the web pages in its index, that determines what is going to show up on the Google SERP, the search engine results page, in response to our questions. So here's the written version of that exact same thing. These search engines have spiders that are crawling web content around the world. that information becomes available to Google's index. So it's available to show in response to relevant search queries. Okay, so that's how it works. But how do we help search engines find our content and rank it highly so we can get clicks? And hopefully that's why you guys are here. And hopefully you will find, hey, this guy, I'm glad I listened for my lunch break on Monday because I learned at least a little bit that's going to help me to do that. You'll have to tell me if that's not the case, and we'll see what we can do about that. But how can we give our content the best chance to be ranked by search engines? We're going to go through this briefly, and then we'll talk about it in more depth. First, slowly accumulate backlinks to our website over time. Backlinks, that's just a term for links from other websites that point back to our website. These are also called inbound links. When we're doing content creation, when we're writing on our website, we don't want to just kind of blindly write about something. We want to be really intentional about writing about topics that people are looking for and that have a chance where we can actually rank for them. And that comes down to something called keyword research. And we'll talk today about some free platforms that we can use to help us do that. Once we have our ideas, our keywords that we want to write about, we want to arrange our topics into something called a topic cluster. When we're writing an individual page, let's say it's a business blog that we're writing on our site about something, a service that we provide, or a product that we sell, we want to use things that are called H1s and H2s properly. We want to use alt text properly in our embedded images. And again, we'll talk about all of these things in more detail now. First, let's do domain authority, which comes from these accumulated links to our website. All right, domain authority, it's kind of a made up metric, honestly. Google doesn't have something called domain authority, but if you've heard of platforms like Moz or SEMrush or Ahrefs, these are some like SEO software platforms that some people pay for. They all have this score called domain authority, which is basically, it's a 0 to 100 score that's used to represent the trustworthiness and authority of a given website. And it is determined by the number and value of those backlinks that your website has from other websites pointing to it. And as you get more valuable inbound links, your site becomes more trustworthy, it increases in authority, and it increases your SEO ranking potential. And that's the important thing to know here. It's generally predictive of SEO potential. So if Garba has a website with a domain authority of 30, and I have a website with a domain authority of 20, and we both write a very similar piece of content trying to rank for the same keyword, Garba is going to outrank me 10 times out of 10, simply because his website is more trusted by Google. Now that assumes, however, that we write the same kind of content that in Google's eyes is equally helpful, equally trustworthy, equally useful for people in answering questions. It doesn't mean that Garba is just going to outrank me no matter what. I can write a better piece of content, perhaps, or invest more time in trying to create a more useful piece of content to outperform a website that might have a higher domain authority. So it's important to remember that domain authority is useful, but it's only telling us about what the potential might be. Now here's an anonymous site. This is a business that I was working with, actually a digital marketing firm that doesn't spend a lot of time in generating content for their website. They don't spend much time writing blogs that are helpful for their kind of, for their clients. Doesn't mean they couldn't, it just means they've prioritized different things. So that number right there, it's very small, but that is showing a 28, and that is what their domain authority is. 28 on the 1 to 100 scale. And then the root and branch site, my company, you can see our domain authority is only 23, so much lower. And all things being equal, if we're doing the same kind of content creation, they are going to have more traffic coming from Google than me. But as we'll see, I actually have more traffic on my website. This is a screenshot from a platform called Google Search Console. If you haven't seen this, it's totally free. All you need to have is a website and prove to Google that you own it, and you will get great insights on traffic coming to your website from Google organic search. So this is root and branch. Over the past 3-ish months, you can see it's over 16,000 free clicks that the website has generated from people finding root and branch in Google organic search with our lower domain authority. And here's this other business with a higher domain authority and under 1,500 clicks over the same time frame, which again means if they embark on an on-page SEO strategy, they start writing a lot of blogs, trying to answer questions that their customers and prospects are having, they should be able to generate as good or in fact better results than the root and branch site simply because they have more potential. But if they don't choose to use that potential, or if they invest their time and resources elsewhere, they're not going to get those results. If you're interested, again, this link will be in the back, but 6 ways that you can increase domain authority through link building to your website. All right, so keywords and keyword research. I would say that link building stuff, that's kind of like the long game. It's really hard to generate links and like just go out today and say, hey, I want to find 4 people that are going to give me a link to my website. It's possible, but generally that's more something that takes time. Keywords and keyword research is something that if you're sitting down this week to write a blog or to craft a new page on your website, you can do this immediately. So keywords are simply, these are the things that people are looking for in Google, right? You could consider a search term or a search query to be a synonym. And when we are picking keywords that we want our website to rank for, there are 3 things to think about. Now, of course, I would say the first thing underneath all of this is they need to be relevant for what our business does and how we solve problems for our customers and clients. But after you have that first thing out of the way, the next thing to think about is whether you want a short tail keyword or a long tail keyword. And what's that mean? Well, only a limited number of keywords will be for popular, highly searched for terms that are called short tail or sometimes head keywords. Here's a little graph here called the search demand curve. And it's just representing the total number of potential keywords that are out there and how frequently they are searched. So see in that right there, that yellow arrow just popped on screen. That's the majority of keyword phrases. Excuse me, that is only, that's called a short tail keyword there. So only about 20%, 18.5% of terms exist there on that left side of the graph. But you can see they are searched for very frequently. The majority of keyword phrases or keywords that exist will be something called long tail keywords out there. So each of the long tail keywords are searched much less frequently than a short tail keyword. What does it mean for us? In general, the long tail keywords are often great opportunities for businesses like ours, small businesses, for finding the most relevant searches that will attract the right high intent prospects. So a short tail keyword would be something like pizza, right? So if we're opening a new pizza parlor in State College or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, it's probably going to be pretty tough if we say, hey, we want our website to just rank for pizza, because we're competing against not just a bunch of local competitors, but Domino's, Papa John's, places with huge websites, with massive domain authorities that Google already knows and trusts. So it's going to be really tough to consistently outrank a business like that for something like pizza. But there's a neighborhood in Pittsburgh called Lawrenceville, right? So if we're launching our pizza business and we're going to make, say, specialize in delivery pizza because our logistics is incredible and we want the best delivery pizza in Lawrenceville, that is a long tail keyword that we're going to be able to rank for and most likely rank in the first or second spot just by optimizing our site for that. So picking keywords is important. We should also think about branded versus non-brand keywords. Brand being something like somebody looking for Starbucks near me, non-branded keyword being for someone looking for a coffee shop near me. They're both important in SEO, but in different ways. Traffic from branded search, so people looking for your business by name, generally converts at a much higher rate than non-branded search. So that's good. What's bad is branded search isn't necessarily winning you new eyeballs, right? Because people already knew your name. So most people, when we think about SEO, we think about this second kind of keyword, non-branded keyword. And that's, again, because these are new eyeballs. These are potential for growing your customer or client base. And then third, this is probably the most important. We think about search volume and keyword difficulty. So this little graph on the screen here, the y-axis, think about that in terms of how often a given keyword is searched for. Low search volume at the bottom, high search volume at the top. And the x-axis is low competition on the left-hand side and high competition on the right. High competition and low competition referring to how many other websites are trying to rank for that. So in general, we want to find relevant keywords with high search volume and low difficulty. Low difficulty being low competition. And our best keywords will meet at that intersection, right up there in that green box. If we can focus our time there, we're going to get the best payoff for our time in creating SEO content. Because SEO does take time. It takes either time or money. If we're paying someone to do it, then it takes obviously money to pay them. If we're going to do it ourselves, it takes our time. And we know there's lots of different stuff we can be spending our time on. So we really want to avoid trying to rank for any keywords that might be really low value, low volume, and really hard to rank for. Like, what's the point? And then we want to, maybe we'll think about things in these yellow boxes, keywords that are easy to rank for, but low volume, or things that are really high volume and high potential, but might be really hard for us to rank for, just really competitive. So let's talk about these two things more, search volume and keyword difficulty. So search volume is simply, just back up here, an estimate of the number of unique searches each month in the US, at least, for a particular term. I said in the US because depending on what platform you're using to get these numbers from, they might show you something else, or they might give you the option to search for a different geography. But in general, it's going to show you United States. And keyword difficulty, it's a 1 to 100 number representing how relatively easy, that would be a low number, or how hard it is to rank for a search term. Let's say we've got a wholesale wine glass business and we do some keyword research. We're looking at 4 different keywords, and then we can see the search volume and the keyword difficulty. That one right there, wholesale wine glasses with great search volume, 600 searches per month, and the lowest keyword difficulty of all of these 4 options. If it were my business, that would be the one I would think about first. That would be my top priority. And I would really want to avoid spending a ton of time trying to rank for 8-ounce wine glasses bulk. It's a long tail keyword, which we might think would be good, but as we can see here, it's actually a higher keyword difficulty in addition to having a significantly lower search volume than wholesale wine glasses. So just really not going to be worth our time considering our other potential. And then we'd think more about these things in the middle that have okay search volume, like cheap wine glasses. Let's just assume for a second that that's not an issue for our brand. With huge search volume, 1,500 searches a month, but a much higher keyword difficulty. So we might choose to try to rank for that, but just know it would be harder for us and might take more time to rank for than wholesale wine glasses. So what platforms can we use for keyword research? There are lots of options out there, and there are lots of options that you can pay money for. but here are a few that at least have free options. One is Google. Google will tell you the most commonly asked questions when you search for something. Another one is Moz Pro SEO. I use this one. They have a keyword explorer tool. It's a paid platform, but there are free versions available where you can get free searches each month. And then Ubersuggest, which also has a paid platform, but I think you can get up to 5 free searches per day at ubersuggest.com. I don't have a relationship with any of these platforms. If you have others that you like, that's fine. I won't be offended, but these are ones that I find helpful for myself. And I do use Ubersuggest, but I only use the free version. So let's get back to our counseling center and see how we might be able to use some of these keyword research tools. So 2 main service lines, and we're going to look at couples therapy. So our goal, let's say we have a couples therapy page on our site where we provide couples therapy services, and we want people to come to that page, learn about what we're offering, and ultimately maybe click through to book an appointment or a consultation. The way to do that is not just to create a single page all about couples therapy, but that's a really good start. But we also are going to want to have related pages exploring different questions that people are asking when they're considering couples therapy. So if we are ranking for those related questions, and then we can basically use those pages as mini magnets to attract people to our site. And then once they're on those pages, link them to our main couples therapy page. So how do we know what questions, what other keywords we want to rank for? Keyword research. Here's a screenshot from this morning for me. If I looked for couples therapy, and you guys are probably familiar with this. You'll see this people also ask feature on the Google search engine results page. This is Google telling us the most common questions that people also ask after they look for couples therapy. They look for, what do couples do in therapy? What is the success rate of couples therapy? Is couples therapy worth the money? What is the most common problem addressed in couples therapy? These are 4 awesome ideas for blog topics that you could write. And when Google sees that you have all 4 of those, not only will those be able to rank on their own, but in the eyes of Google, you will have something that's called topical authority, where Google begins to see your website as an expert on the subject. So that's totally free. People also ask. Ubersuggest. If you go to Ubersuggest, there's a search bar. This is one where I just typed in couples therapy. You can pick your geography there. You can see this is the US. And I apologize for the small font here, but hopefully you can see some of this, or at least can catch it in the deck that can be sent out afterwards. But Ubersuggest will give you some related keyword ideas, along with some really helpful metrics, like volume, number of times each one is searched each month, and this thing called SD, which is just SEO difficulty. So there's our volume and our competition, our SEO difficulty. Ubersuggest will also show you, if you see that right in the middle, it says CPC, how much you'd expect to pay for a given click if you were to bid on the keyword using Google Ads. So in this case, we're trying to earn it, right? But it can start to give us a sense of what our ROI is. For example, is couples therapy covered by insurance? If you look over to the CPC column, that's $6.35. So if we were able to get to the point where we're generating, let's say 100 clicks a week from our organic search efforts, we could say, that's worth $635, just based on what the market value for those clicks would have been if we were to pay for them. And you can start to get a sense of how you can think about ROI for your own SEO efforts. I also really like this one at the bottom, questionnaire for couples therapy. So lower volume than some others here, but the difficulty is significantly lower, which for a small business like you or like me, it's helpful to think about what are some of the lower difficulty keywords because that's going to give us our best chance to rank, at least out of the gate. Over time, we can target more and more competitive keywords as our site increases in authority and in the eyes of Google. Here's a screenshot of what Moz will show you. If we look for that keyword, couples therapy questionnaire, Moz will show us what's the monthly volume for that and what's the difficulty. Different numbers for Moz, right? Like these different platforms have their own kind of like proprietary calculations, but they're all doing the same kind of thing. So if we compare our SEO difficulty within Moz, that's going to help us. It wouldn't be helpful for us to try to say, hey, this is a 29 difficulty in Moz, but lower in Ubersuggest. Why is that? I mean, we don't know, but still lower is always going to be better. And Moz will also show us, hey, who are the top 3 sites that are ranking for that keyword right now? Who would our competition be? And we can actually see what the domain authority of those sites is. And if you look at number 2 there, that website's domain authority is a 19. So not that high. We can see that the 3rd ranking site there has a domain authority of 66. So as long as we can write a piece of content that is at least as good as the result in number 2 there, and our website has a domain authority of 19 or higher, there's no reason we can't get to the 1st or 2nd spot and start to generate some really meaningful click volume to our website. All right, another YouTube link that will be at the end there if you want more on keyword research, because we're going to be moving on now to topic clusters and content planning. And this is where we get after we've done our initial keyword research to kind of generate a list of topics that we might want to write about. All right, so we've got some target keywords, and now we want to take them and we want to create a content strategy or a content roadmap out of those keywords. The important thing here is that for the best long-term results for us, if we're going to be using on-page SEO for our business, we should plan our content into groups of related pages. That's called a cluster or a topic cluster. A topic cluster has a specific structure. It exists with a main topic page located in the middle and supporting subtopic pages located around it. We'll get a visual look at that shortly. The important thing to remember is that the linking is the key. So here's our topic cluster. Right in the middle, we can see something that says pillar content. So that pillar content, you could also call it your core topic page. For the case of our counseling center, that would be like our primary couples counseling service page. And then we have all of these other pieces of related content that exist around the primary topic page. All of those other things that we were just coming up with nominees for when we were doing keyword research. And they're connected to the main page through links. Linking is the key, all of these links popping up. Now, links, just like inbound links that we get from other domains to our website that Google sees, Google also follows links within our website. Those are called internal links. And Google looks at pages on our site to figure out, hey, which page is getting the most links? And Google is going to think that's probably the most important page. Because if your website pages are all saying through their linking structure, this page is the most important, Google's going to believe that. And if furthermore, those pages are all related to the same general kind of topic, Google is going to be much more likely to continue to reinforce in its Google brain, hey, this is what this thing is about. All of these other pages keep telling me it's about couples counseling. So as these new pages, these new subtopic pages get created, all with links to that page, I'm just going to continue to like this page in the middle more and more and more. Assuming, again, that the content is helpful, it's well written, it's useful in answering people's questions. So a relevant example to today, let's say we wanted to write a page ranking for SEO. That would be our pillar page or our core topic page. As we can see in the diagram, that's right in the middle. There it is, SEO. So how would we go about doing that? We would create a great page all about SEO. And then we would start writing. We would start writing our subtopic pages. Pages like measuring ROI from SEO. How do we do that? Things like keyword research strategies. We just talked about them. Things like website architecture. How do you set up a website for SEO success? And as we write these new blogs, we don't need to write them all at once. We can slowly add over time. They all have links that point into our main core topic page. And as the new subtopic pages are created, as the new links go to the core topic page, Google sees these links and says, I'm going to keep increasing the rank of this core topic page over time. So here's what it looks like for the beginning of our client cluster. Core topic page, they've got their main couples therapy page that lives in the middle. And then let's say we picked insurance and couples therapy. We're going to write a page about like which insurances are generally accepted with couples therapy, which maybe we have some recommendations, and which ones like are accepted at our specific practice, the success rate of couples therapy, and maybe a sample couples therapy questionnaire, that one that had really low difficulty and really pretty high search interest. Each connected to that main page with links, which on the one hand, yes, it helps people navigate there who are interested, who want to go forward and maybe learn more about our specific offering and book a consultation. Totally helpful. And also, again, helpful for Google because Googlebot is going to be following those links. And Googlebot is also going to be reading what's called the anchor text of those links. So it's important to use what's called descriptive anchor text. Instead of just saying, click here and making that the hyperlink, if we use text like couples therapy or couples therapy services or couples therapy Philadelphia as the links that point to that main couples page, Googlebot reads that anchor text and uses it to help its understanding of what the destination page is. Here's an example for the root and branch site, my website. I write a lot about Google Analytics. As some of you may know, Google Analytics is going through a big transition this year. What had been the main Google Analytics platform, something called Universal Analytics or UA, beginning in July of 2023, will no longer be around anymore. There's a new Google Analytics called GA4. So I write about that and have a page comparing GA4 versus UA across a number of different elements. That's my core topic page, GA4 versus UA, which people search for a lot. And then I've been writing subtopics like some problems with GA4, 6 tasks for GA4 setup, how you do link click tracking in GA4 versus Universal Analytics, 7 things to do with Google Analytics in 2022. You get the idea. And let's just look at one recent one that I wrote on link click tracking, Google Analytics 4 versus UA, so we can kind of see how these things help each other. Because not only do the subtopic pages help your core topic page, but the core topic page will also help new subtopic pages to rank because Google sees the whole thing as connected and will come to see your website more and more and more as an expert in the specific topics that you are writing about if you use this kind of topic cluster structure. All right, so GA4 versus UA. So if you look for that in Google, you will see, hopefully, the core topic page is ranking, which we'll see in a second. Yeah, so GA4 versus UA, you can see Google has the first answer there. But my website, depending on the day, is typically either the second or the third spot. And I recently created this new blog, right, about Google Analytics link click tracking. So totally separate page, but related to the general theme of comparing these two platforms. And that was setting up link click tracking in Google Analytics. That one right there. And normally, if I write a new web page on my site, it will take, I would say, a long time for it to climb up the ranks. But for this particular page, because it links both to the core topic page, and because within the core topic page, I gave a link back to the new blog, you can see how search volume, how clicks from Google has really ramped up quite quickly for the new blog. And it's because of this relationship to the pillar page or the core topic page. So Google already knows and likes that page, and Google sees that that page is now giving a link to this new page and says, all right, I already like this one. I can see that people are going there. People seem to be spending time reading it. They like this page. If this page is really related to this new one, I'm going to like that one as well. And it just kind of builds on each other, on itself from there. Another link in the appendix, more about keyword research if you want to hear more on that. All right, we're getting close now. So we've got kind of our keyword strategy. We've done our keyword research. We've put it into this cluster format, and we have the topics that we want to write about. When we actually write the content, that's where this idea of H1s and H2s comes into play. It's about how we structure our individual pages. H1 to H6 tags, it sounds like highly technical stuff. I'm actually not a really technical guy. So I like things that I can understand what they are, but I don't need to know how to do coding, for example. So H1 to H6 tags, they are HTML codes, but really they are codes that are just, it's just like a font, how a font is displayed to you or me when we're reading a page. What we should know is as the heading number gets bigger, the font actually gets smaller. Here's an example to the right from my WordPress site. So you can see heading 1 there, bigger than heading 2, and so on. Here's how an H2 looks on a page. If we actually, I just grabbed this from the Google Analytics 4 blog I had mentioned. So there's a section, what is GA4? And that what is GA4 with the big font, that is an H2. This is what it looks like in HTML. So the same text, but you can see if you squint where it says, what is GA4? Immediately above and below that, it says H2. So what humans see on the left, what Googlebot sees on the right, and H2s, Googlebot is going to look at and say, are these H2s generally related to the keyword that this page seems to be all about? The closer they are, the more relevant they are, the more likely that Google is going to say, hey, this page is really about this specific topic, and I really want to rank it. So even though there's like H1 through H6, generally I only concern myself with the first two, H1s and H2s. H1, short for heading 1, it's typically your title or your header for your page or your blog. So in general, we should just plan on a single one per page. Just think about it, it's the title at the top of the page. Often the most prominent font you'll see. H2s, on the other hand, these are going to be called subheadings that basically structure our content out into like chunks. So in WordPress, changing your headings is as simple as using a drop-down menu. It's kind of just like Word or any word processing software. It's different in Wix or Squarespace, whatever platform you're using. Again, there's some tutorials on my YouTube channel. If you have a specific platform that's not addressed there and you shoot me a message either on LinkedIn or comment on a YouTube video, I'd be happy to make one for you. So yeah, H1s and H2s. A page can have multiple H2s. So single H1, you can have multiple H2s, and you can use it to target multiple secondary keywords and make the page more structured and readable. And that matters because many of us, we come to a web page, and if it doesn't immediately grab our attention, we are going to leave. So I found this article that 63% of readers drop out within the first 10% of an average political article, and 30% leave the page without reading a single word, which is crazy. H2s help prevent that, because H2s prevent what's called this, like just seeing a whole bunch of text without a nice structured readable format. So H2s help our on-page SEO in 3 ways. Increased readability avoids what's called that wall of text and gets better engagement, and it helps in planning out our content so we know the specific elements that we're going to address in our topic, and provides opportunities to target multiple secondary keywords on a single page. So that same idea of like core topic and subtopics within our whole content structure, we can take that same thought process and apply it to each of our pieces of content with a core topic and then related secondary topics on a given page. Here's a good example. What is intractable spasticity? I had worked with a business that was a medical marijuana dispensary, and we were writing some content about some of the conditions that were approved for a medical marijuana card in Pennsylvania. So you can see this blog here about intractable spasticity. It's not huge. It's not a massive amount of content. There's the H1, which leads with the primary keyword that we wanted to rank for, intractable spasticity. And then each of the H2s, what is spasticity? What causes intractable spasticity? What are the symptoms? They all are individual questions on their own, and they also all support the primary topic, the primary H1. All right. The last thing I'm going to say, and then we're wrapping up. We'll just talk about alt text. Alt text matters because search engines can't see images. Alt text is short for alternative image text, and it is simply an SEO friendly attribute that can be added to any image on your website. It's going to tell Google, hey, this is what this image is. Here's a quick example about how to use it first. So if you are looking in Google, the default will be kind of Google's going to show you web search results, but you can toggle to look for image search results. And over time, let's get through that. But this is a website that I used to work with quite regularly. We can see clicks coming from Google web search, 23,400. And if we look at clicks coming from Google image search, nearly as many. So really easy thing to do, alt text, if you know how to do it. Last plug for a YouTube video, how to set alt text up for WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, and Shopify. All right, Garba, I'm done.
I am right here. Just a quick one before we dive into the question and answer section, because we're left with like simply 7 minutes to wrap it up. This goes to my wonderful attendees. I just posted a 30-second survey about today's webinar. Remember, we at Temple SPDC, we always cherish your feedbacks, even as it helps us to improve on the services we provide to you guys at a low cost. So kindly take 30 seconds of your time, help us to fill out the survey I just posted. I will be posting it twice before we wrap it up. Zack, you can take it up from here.
Okay. Awesome. Regina asked Google or Google Keyword Planner tool, which tool? Regina, I have used both, but I really just use Google. I think Google Keyword Planner is, it's only okay. I think I would have put it below the 3 options that we went through today. If you're using it specifically for Google Ads, it's helpful because Google is going to give you the most accurate estimate for what you would pay on a CPC basis. But I don't believe that their search volume estimates are as useful as some of the other ones. Just my perspective and my experience. All right, let's look at some of the chat questions. Hey, Haley, fellow Pittsburgher. Thanks for jumping on. Awesome. A lot of these comments are about connection issues. Rihanna would like the link to the previous videos. Can we send those, Garba? Do you have those from like the last?
She can as well go to our YouTube channel. They are all on the YouTube channel.
Okay. T. Simmons asked, the domain authority is referring to how often the website is visited. No, the domain authority is related to how many links the website has and what Google thinks about the websites that are sending links to your website. It's just based, like, if you have an established website and I open a new website today, Google is going to be very skeptical about ranking anything from my website because Google doesn't know, like, am I a scammer? Am I actually, like, do I have real customers? Do people like come to my website and like it? And so as Google doesn't really know, it's going to rely on signals from other websites to figure out kind of what to think about my website. And that's what domain authority is. As it accumulates links from other websites, those are all kind of like votes of trust that I'm getting. And Google then sees those and says, okay, I'm going to be more and more likely to rank your website. Elizabeth asked, does that mean that someone posts your link on their websites? Yes, it does. Yep. Amy, thank you for the kind words. When should we pay for a keyword search engine such as Yoast or SEMrush? That's a great question, Amy. So I use Yoast on my WordPress site, but I use the free version. So from my experience, you can get 99% of what you need from Yoast with the free version. That's just me. SEMrush, I mean, I think if you're going to dedicate a significant amount of time to SEO analysis and reporting, it might make sense. But in general, I think you can get a lot of this stuff for free. For a while, I paid for Moz SEO and SEMrush. Now I don't pay for SEMrush anymore. I still do pay for Moz, but that's because I have a number of like client sites that I'm managing through that. If it were just my own website, I probably wouldn't pay for anything. If you go to Ahrefs, which is, it's kind of spelled weird, it's AHREFS, they have an awesome tool that I think is almost as good as the paid version of SEMrush. So that's going to show you things like any SEO issues on your site. It's going to track keywords that are ranking on your site. Yeah, that's my recommendation. But yeah, if let's say if you really want to pay for an SEO tool, or if you have a significant amount of time to dedicate to it, then I certainly wouldn't discourage you from that. I would just say probably try and get as far as you can with the free stuff first, because there's nothing magic about paying for a tool that helps your site to rank. It just kind of gives you a more robust suite of options to use when you're trying to get your site to rank. Does this info apply to other search engines like DuckDuckGo and Yahoo? Michael, yes. So they kind of all work the same way. They have, DuckDuckGo has a different marketing handle all about privacy, which is, pretty cool. Tough to argue with that. But they all have these crawlers and bots that are looking around the internet trying to understand content. And in general, when Google makes an algorithm change, which sometimes people hear about, Bing and Yahoo tend to try to follow along with what Google is doing, because Google has well over 90% of the organic search market in the US. So the other ones are just trying to keep up. Elizabeth, thank you. The first time someone explained SEO in a way that you understood, that makes my day. I am really grateful and flattered. That was awesome. Sandra, I'm glad you like the part about topic clusters. Yes, that's awesome. And I would tell you my own SEO, like on my own website, didn't really start to ramp up until I started implementing that structure. And just as you continue to create new stuff, it just makes it better and better. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the kind words. Shelly, I'm totally with you. There are like so many terms and concepts here. Thank you, and thank all of you guys for hanging in there with me today. Because yeah, I used to work before doing this. I used to work for Dick's Sporting Goods, and I remember agencies would come in. They would just like say all of these words that I was convinced were only to like make me feel like I had no idea what they were talking about, which is maybe true, maybe not true. So yes, thank you for your patience and sticking with it. Thank all of you guys. Thank you, Garba. I think those are all of the questions.
Yeah, it's actually 1 o'clock. We've exhausted our time, but I think one just came up from Cassandra, and she was asking if you have any videos you have on YouTube and how it attributes to your SEO.
You know, Cassandra, I have one that I did on actually that core topic page. And I think I went through like the 9 or 10 factors that I think are the reason why it's ranking where it was. So I don't know if you can do this, Garba, but I can send that to you if there's a way to, or I can just, actually, I'll just put it in the deck before I send the deck to you to share with the group. So Cassandra, if you want to check that out, you can have it.
Okay, before we wrap it up, like I said 1 minute ago, this is 1 o'clock. We were supposed to wrap it up at 1, but of course, the presentation was awesome. The flow was just superb. We needed to like exit to our time. Before we wrap it up, I just want to thank you guys for keeping it a day with us. Zack, you are awesome. You are great. I like the way the presentation actually went, and all the questions that came up on board was completely nailed. Thank you for keeping it a day with us. Before I just conclude the whole thing, just want to also thank my Temple SPDC colleague for their wonderful cooperation and support. Without them, we wouldn't have been here, and this webinar wouldn't have come into existence. Thank you guys, and please don't forget, though I would also attach it on the follow-up emails, try as much as possible to click on the survey link. Remember, I said it helps us to improve on the services we provide to you guys at a no cost. So kindly take 30 seconds of your time and help us out to fill out the survey. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.